is the Chief Technology Officer and President at Signity Technologies North America. In this role, he is responsible for revenue targets, business growth, and technology strategy for Signity NA. Pradeep is an industry thought leader in software testing with over 15 years of experience. He has strong expertise in setting up testing centers of excellence around test management, automation, mobility, SOA, and functional testing. He has established more than 20-plus teams of 500 members in size. He has been the key champion in setting up several niche skill practices for testing offerings around mobility, digital commerce, SOA, automation, DevOps, and security. Pradeep has been a keynote speaker at several industry conferences and has published several technology white papers during his professional career. He has also contributes technology articles in Forbes and other reputed magazines. Pradeep has won many industry awards and recognitions, including Top 10 CTOs from Texas and Top 100 Change Agents in IT. He was also instrumental in Cognizant winning the 2013 Informatica Innovation Award for Test Data Management. Prior to Signity, he held multiple leadership roles at Cognizant. We're excited to have Pradeep with us today, and now I turn it over to him.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep here. Thanks, Tom. Today's presentation, the topic is quality engineering in DevOps world, a key strategic enabler, right? So in today's world, DevOps, everything is all continuous to change, with respect to development, integration. What is new in quality, right? We have been doing a lot of quality assurance, independent software testing. How is this changing in the DevOps world? What is quality engineering is all about? How do we fit into this whole DevOps model, right? What is the role of quality engineering in this DevOps world is what I'm going to share. I'm also going to talk in detail about what the industry reference is all about. What does analysts say, such as the Gartner and Forrester and various analyst firms, talks about where the DevOps world is heading and how do we, as a market, how do we prepare for that particular DevOps transformation? So DevOps in a nutshell, DevOps versus DevOps. The new terminology which some of the analysts are coming up with a terminology called DevOps. How do we embed testing or quality into the DevOps world, which is the most critical and strategic enabler into the DevOps world? Right? Continuous testing and delivery leveraging quality engineering. Right? Continuous testing become a mainstream in some analyst firms or some of the industry organizations where they say, if you have a continuous integration, continuous delivery, why not continuous testing? Because that's part of your overall delivery life cycle. Right? And what is unit testing and static application security testing? What is the role of the QE in the unit testing and SaaS world? And how do we prepare ourselves for automation, performance, and security? Because that forms the key component of a quality engineering in the DevOps world. The biggest part is the virtualization. So in the DevOps world, virtualization plays a huge value. It includes the network virtualization, infrastructure virtualization, and data virtualization. In addition, from a QE world, what is service virtualization is all about? How do we embed this service virtualization in the quality engineering? The final topic is around continuous integration, operation stabilization. Right? So in today's world, requirements, as soon as the requirements start, you need to prepare yourself from understanding what those requirements is. How do we stabilize the deployments and delivery plan? And how do we bring operation stabilization in the DevOps world? What is the role of quality engineering in the areas of operations, in the areas of release, in the areas of deployment? Right? And how do we prepare ourselves in the continuous automation and delivery pipeline? And how do we differentiate as a QE player in the DevOps world? What kind of collaborative platform that we can bring that brings in a key differentiators into the DevOps IT organization? Right? Those are the key agenda points that I'm going to cover in detail. And this particular session is focused for the thought leaders, focused for the practitioners, also focused for the DevOps industry organization where they are moving from either from waterfall directly into the DevOps world or from an agile towards the DevOps world. What is that as an organization, we need to be ready in the quality engineering world is what I'm going to cover in the next 42 minutes. Analysts speak, this is from the Gartner. The Gartner says in just 6 months, they have received 3,500 client interactions, talk about what is DevOps all about, awareness, in terms of awareness, initiatives, successes, and failures. They have been receiving queries every day nowadays, right? And from a Forrester standpoint, they're very clear that, it's not just from a unicorn. DevOps is now becoming a mainstream. The business leaders is saying that, Agile is no longer enough. Of course, yes, Agile 2-3 years back become the popular, movement from DevOps, from waterfall. And today it's all about DevOps. How do we get our technology organizations be ready for DevOps for a faster release to the market, right? And in terms of analysts speak, the type of queries that they have been getting on the key challenges or DevOps tool chains are often built from called disconnected tools, which brings in a challenge for many organizations as to should I go with one single tool, should I go with open source tools, or should I go with commercial off-the-shelf software? How can I get one single tool chain in my organization, right? The third is orchestrating the DevOps tool chain can be compelling, but it can introduce another set of challenges in terms of, how do I integrate the Microsoft platform with the open source platform, or how do I integrate Java platform with Microsoft or open source. So there are many aspects of complexity has come into the play when it comes to orchestration of DevOps. And the final one is on the tool chain orchestration. It gives you the simplification of DevOps. However, not a single tool supports the entire continuous integration. And so where you can, see that, okay, I can bring Microsoft tools or a Java tool or an open source tool so that I can integrate all of my continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous testing, and bring operations into a single view of platform. That brings in a lot of challenges to that. And this is an industry problem at this point. Maybe in 2 to 3 years from now, some tool vendors may come up with, okay, I have a chain which I can cover the entire application lifecycle management for DevOps that includes all the way from your requirements towards the operation side of it. Today, it doesn't exist. That's a key challenge that have been posted to us. So I'm going to talk about how is the market, is looking at that. How, as a QE player, we can quality engineering player, how we can address some of these challenges, and how we can integrate the tools so that every delivery is seamless from a CI/CD pipeline. When it comes, DevOps adoption is no longer just for unicorns. In the past 2015, 2016, it was always for the startups where they are looking at the Uber of the world or Amazon or Facebook. They looked at DevOps and said that I'm going to have more release every day, every minute, every second. So that was for the unicorn. But in today's world, in 2017, everybody is now moving towards that DevOps transformation. So the first and foremost is culture, and people come first and process follows, right? So that's one of the prime themes there in the DevOps world. On the survey left side, which says the Forrester Q1 2017 Global DevOps Benchmark Online Survey, that says that many organizations are adopting DevOps for their internal applications. When you have an internet of testing with smart enabled products or digital applications, the mobility apps, and any digital commerce or e-commerce site, they are getting into DevOps much faster than it is, right? And it may not be for these applications, but even the traditional and legacy application is also getting much faster adoption on the DevOps, right? The three aspects that, why DevOps is being implemented is one, obviously, to do the culture and processing, bring operations, bring quality engineers ahead of the game so that they are participating in the release lifecycle. Feedbacks are, much faster, fail fast and deliver it, much successful way, right? And then release velocity, increase the release velocity so that I can go to the market on a day with all those changes. I can deploy a newer environment while, without having an impact to my existing environment, right? And the last aspect is cloud capabilities. Now, cloud becoming a reality. It's not just for unicorn. Cloud is for healthcare industry. Cloud is for life science. Cloud is for compliance and banking and financial services as well. Everybody is implementing cloud much faster than what it was 2-3 years back. So when it comes to cloud, the only way that it gets implemented is through the DevOps model, right? We evaluated the various industries like how manufacturing, retail, wholesale, all of these industries are looking at these adoptions as well. So DevOps is not just for unicorn; it is for industries which are backward towards technologies such as manufacturing and utilities, they are now looking at taking the DevOps mainstream in their IT organization. And when it comes to adoption of it, when one of the surveys says that enterprise adoption versus small and medium business adoption, quite surprising that 81% of the enterprise is now looking at, we want to get into DevOps. So very little of less than 20% say they are either not adopting or they don't know the process. The don't know is going to convert into a DevOps model in the next 1 year. By 2020, 93% of the organization have some form of adoption of DevOps in their organization. So that's the buzzword today, what we call DevOps, is not going to be a buzzword in 2020. It's going to be a mainstream. Every engineer would have a role in the form of DevOps lifecycle and play a huge transformation in getting the applications to market. DevOps adoption up in 2016 by significantly about 15% from 2015, and 2017 they expect it to go up to about 82%. And some of the tools, you would have heard, I'm going to share a lot of tools, the Docker and configuration tool, and many companies use, test and Puppet for configurations, for, deployment, for release automation, and all of those areas. They use a combination or they use an independent tool, and container-based applications have come into an adoption in many organizations. So these are some of the, technologies, and we would like to share what the industry trends all about, what the adoption that are happening, what the analysts speak in the organization. So I'm going to pull a poll. I request Tom to share a poll today as to what your organization in transforming into DevOps. Tom?
Okay, everybody should have the poll up there now. You go ahead and answer the questions. All right, we'll give ourselves just another few seconds here. Looks like just about everybody has jumped in there. Okay, here we go. And there you've got the results. See, 61% had yes, they're involved, 30% no, and 9% I don't know.
Absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal result. I was expecting, a similar number or a much higher number. So it's very clear, a year back when we were doing a DevOps survey with our webinar attendees, it was about 33%. That's what they said. They are evaluating, they are doing into that. So in a year, we see probably most of you are new or have been attending this webinar series. We see that, doubled actually, 65% adopting DevOps, which is a significant model, and I'm sure that in the next 12 months, your organization is going through this. When we were doing a CIO survey with Fortune 1000 companies, many CIOs are interested in doing DevOps or already into this mainstream adoption as well. So DevOps adoption, happening. Respondents using DevOps tools, we did a survey through the right scale, talked about Puppet, Ceph, Docker, Ansible, Salt, and Rocket. These are some of those surveys going into that, right? So enterprise adoption for DevOps, again, adopting DevOps we use for division is 31%, for projects and teams about 29%, adopting DevOps company-wide is about 21%. So that's an enterprise adoption. Right. So one of the challenges that every organization when they adopt DevOps is the container, right? So in in terms of how the application is moved towards the container, such as Docker or Huddle, what are some of those security aspects? What are some of those challenges on governance? How it can live up to the DevOps, development team or operations team into that, right? So the major challenge is many of the IT organizations don't have this experience of handling a container-based DevOps development or security-based. I'm going to share, what are some of those best practices that we can, look at from a quality engineering standpoint. Adoption and strategies vary across vertical segments. Now even the public sector and healthcare, to go into, DevOps. Utility companies is driving DevOps into their organizations. Financial services, banks and insurance are accelerating to compete with, financial technology companies. So they look at DevOps for various purposes. Media, entertainment, and leisure market, they have no choice than to go into DevOps. They have to go live much faster than any one of those industries. Manufacturing is, moving from beyond the automation to show DevOps momentum because their go-to-market, their digital play takes a higher precedence into that. Right? And construction companies, technology is part of those, the business. In retail and wholesale, DevOps adoption drives differentiated interaction. No doubt about it. With Amazon, taking the market too sharp with their whole foot by, every organization is now being competing into DevOps world, digital world, faster release, go online, be the digital organization in their whole industry. Right? Coming on to the core topic of what is DevOps versus DevOps. Right? So DevOps, the characteristics of DevOps is all actions on how quickly development to operations faster. Right? More towards build upon the automation and have a predictive analytics platform. Right? The core theme of DevOps is continuous integration and continuous deployment. How quickly I can integrate my release cycles, go to market. So dev to ops process reduced from months to days to hours. Now hourly releases are happening for many organizations. Continuous feedback, maturing process, and organization focus. These are set of characteristics of what DevOps is. Now looking at DevTestOps. Now testing needs to be embedded, or quality engineering needs to be embedded into this DevOps. Often then, many organizations have a challenge as to what should I use this testing team for? How do I enable my testing organization? What is the QE can come and play a role in my development, in my operations, in my automation, or in my continuous integration and delivery, right? Today's trend is all about giving equal importance for development, operations, and testing. That's the foremost key. Continuous testing. So right when you design your requirement, the quality engineers tend to write the static requirement analysis to see whether it is rightful for the testing team to generate an automated test or not. Test-driven development. How can I build a test-driven development which follows the behavior-driven development approach? End-to-end automation. Right from the design automation, the release automation, the build automation, the service virtualization or ATA automation, infrastructure automation, all the way towards the UAT automation process. End-to-end automation plays a major role in DevTestOps. Overall cost reduction. So now it is not about cost of testing. It is about how do I reduce my cost of quality through an automation process. So that plays a major role in DevTestOps. In a DevOps, every organization look at DevOps for the release time to market and the speed. And the third aspect is cost of quality. How do I reduce my total life cycle so that I can go much less expensive than the traditional cost model. The key thing is fail fast, fail fast, fail first, fail fast, fail often, and early defect detection. The only way that this particular theme can be achieved is through the DevTestOps model. You need to execute ahead of the game so that you can identify the defects and cost of quality improves. Collaborative communication utilizing dashboards. So if there is a way, if we could build a stage gate right in the life cycle of requirements, right in the user story building, right in the operations model, if there is a way build out a dashboard for a testing quality engineering platform, that's probably is going to make a huge difference in delivering this DevTestOps model. DevOps in a nutshell, right? So this is basically for the IT organization to understand how can we insert quality engineering into the DevOps model. I'm going to share how a build and development happens, how a continuous integration automation plays a major role here. In the case of build development, as soon as organizations do the unit testing, in today's world, the quality engineers, we call them as SDET, which is Software Development Engineering Test. The role of them is to understand how you write the unit test. How can I understand the unit test model, Persona Cube, or various other automation tools in place. The second is how can I do a static application security testing during your unit level of writing, and so that I can understand, whether you're releasing any of those defects towards the next set of the life cycle. When build packaging and automated deployment happens, The next comes the continuous testing. Immediately, the test organization, the quality engineering organization are able to understand the build packaging role, and SDETs play a role in deploying these builds, get into the continuous testing, where that includes the functional automation and non-functional automation ahead of the life cycle. And when those production deployment happens, the organization now involves the test organization, the quality engineering organization for monitoring and feedback amplification aspects. This is at a very high level as to how the test organization getting inserted. The blue ones, the light blue ones, are the ones that organizations are involved are involving the quality engineering role. The center one is all about how a physical server or how a virtual server, how a continuous integration server are being utilized for all of these continuous DevOps purposes. Comes, how do we fit into this? The continuous testing and delivery leveraging the QE element, the quality engineering element. Right? On the top, on the center aspect, which is the client layer. So you will have any organization when they adopt DevOps, they have a client layer, the UI layer, the web server, where they host all of these microservices and infrastructure into that in the app server. And the components are being built in the form of an API or third-party services or microservices or individual components into that as well. So, and these, when it comes to testing of it, there are two aspects to it. One aspect is, how do we get the total UI component being tested, which is through a services app, build a continuous integration platform, build a continuous testing for functional automation and non-functional automation. The topmost is how do we get into the data layer? So test data management play a major role. Right when the unit testing happens, you need to get your data ready for your functional testing, API testing, integration testing, system testing, and UAT testing. This particular goes into the play. Then comes the service virtualization. Most often, when development organizations build the individual component, sometimes it's a third-party component that they customize it, and sometimes there are certain components are not ready, but you are asked to do an end-to-end testing for your application before it goes into the system integration. Service virtualization plays a major role in terms of how do we build those mock services, identify those components input and output, host them into the end-to-end test environment, into the virtual server so that you can start doing the testing aspect. All of these are packaged with a collaborative platform from a dashboard standpoint. How can we get access to the CI, CD, service virtualization, data engineering, and tools aspect? Dashboard plays a role here. In the case of DevOps journey, right? The DevOps journey is all about when an organization go towards moving from partial agile to a matured agile. When they go into DevOps model, they either go into a behavior-driven development or accelerated test-driven development and form a mature collaborative agile organization with development, QA, and ops, go into a DevOps world. This is a set of maturity where the organization adopts DevOps into that. And the cost element plays a role of how technology adoption, process management, change management, infrastructure, on-demand environment. These are characteristics of DevOps. The major portion is the automation. This is the QE role. As to many organizations, when they are in partial agile, there may not be automation. The automation may be in place for regression. Right? In a matured organization on agile, there will be functional and non-functional automation would come into the role. Whereas when an organization gets into a TDD or an ATD role, test-driven development or accelerated test-driven development, they start to involve the QE organization with respect to CI and CD aspect. The CI/CD aspect is how can I include my Selenium-based tools into your the Jenkins servers or into any of those Concord servers or any of those NPM servers into that, right? And do a dual shift left approach. Dual shift left is about shift left, right? I'm going to do from the independent testing towards the requirement-based testing or design-based testing or API-based testing. The right shift right, which is basically to go into the operations level or the UAT level, understand what exactly those feedback, embed them into the early stages of the life cycle. So implemented dual shift approach would be the major milestone when you are going into the maturity level of DevOps. The final aspect is how can QE get into the build automation, the deployment, and the release automation. Today, all those industry commercial tools providers enable the QE organizations to work with their release automation tools, to understand the build tools or to understand the deployment tools. This particular build, deployment, and release automation is no longer a development tool. It is part of the QE tools into that. Okay. The key QE elements in detail. How do I get into the quality engineering element? What are some of those best practices? So I mentioned about unit testing and SAS. As one component as to into the overall play, how can we get into that role? So many organizations use their IDE, the integrated development environment, for developing their applications, and they expect the QE team to connect to the CI server, the continuous integration server, or to the build server to see how they can start doing the testing. So as soon as the unit testing is done, the second comes the static code analysis to see what are some of those validations that I can do, right from the input validation, the credential aspect, the session management, error handling, the protection of data, the communication management. Of doing the result analysis with vulnerability, injecting all those the vulnerable code to see if there are any defects that occur. And look at manual analysis for false positive removal. The critical aspect when you do the static code analysis to see whether the code reports any false positive, and then see how we can do the manual analysis of it and provide the final summary with that. So in this way, we are addressing whether the code is ready for the next stage of the level, the code is fully secure, and the code is available to be deployed into the continuous integration environment. Next comes the automation, performance, and security. So the QE aspect is when we get into the DevOps, it's all about automation. It's all about how we can do performance against security aspect. Many organizations do security as a separate stream. They say that it is part of enterprise security organization, or it is part of chief information security officer's organization, and not part of the QE role. Whereas in DevOps, we believe that security is part of the QE organization when it comes to the dynamic application security testing or static application security testing. Right? When it comes to automation, it's all about building an automation for build, for the functional automation, and how can we integrate with the CI platform so that we can see how a live demo of live visualization of how code is moved from the unit testing to a next level of integration. How can we trigger the automation execution as soon as it is ready? How can we do a system integration testing? And how can we do a regression testing? And finally, integrate into any of those test management tools. Today, many tools have come for the test management tools other than the HP test set of tools, which was in the past. The next comes the performance testing, right? So performance testing is given. So in traditional world, performance testing happens right after your system integration testing is over. But in the CI/CD world or in the DevOps world, it needs to be triggered as soon as you do your automation, you do your security, trigger your performance testing in parallel so that you understand all those scenarios ahead of the time. The next is the monitoring aspect. The application performance monitoring happens during the ongoing CI/CD platform rather than doing it in the production system. So that's another area the organization are utilizing the QE role with respect to automation, performance, security, and monitoring. The first aspect of the test-driven development, this is one of the third maturity that I was mentioning about. How can we enable our QE organizations to work with the behavior-driven development approach? What is test-driven development all about, right? So it's a plain English, right? So how can we write an accelerated test-driven development with any of those tools to understand what is the feature is all about? Many organizations develop their feature in the form of spec when it comes to DevOps, and then say that these are features that I'm going to release it in the next 1 week window, and where the testing team require a full requirement for them to write a unit level test case or integration test case or system test case, or can they write with my BDD approach itself, right? With the QE role, our organization, the quality engineering organization, is able to take all those feature specs, understand how it is broken down into different functions, build all those unit level of test cases or integration level of test cases, and create a component so that it gets integrated into your continuous deployment and continuous integration server with respect to all those steps puppets into that. Right? So where we deliver this particular TDD to the developer organization and at the unit level, and then say that, okay, I'm able to run this test and it is ready for me to give it to the next level of integration testing. Right? We use, as a QE organization, we need to have this as a stage gate given to the developer test with respect to TDD, have them run it, and if it is passed, then it is ready for the next round of testing. If it is failed, it is not ready for the integration testing. All of this visually now the QE organization built a DevOps platform so that we can see that where exactly this TDD resides. How will this unit testing happen? Whether it is ready for integration testing or not, or can we trigger the performance testing or not? Right. So all these are referenced under this DevOps practice with respect to TDD. The next aspect is service virtualization. Right? So service virtualization 3-4 years back was always a challenge. Actually, many organizations felt that, okay, I do have a third-party services. I'm building microservices. I'm building, integrating with, other components. So I have a challenge with respect to end-to-end testing. So the environment is not ready, with respect to end-to-end testing. And today, the service virtualization solves a lot of problem in terms of environment dependency, third-party services. How can we eliminate the dependency of the APIs that are not built actually, fully built for the end-to-end testing? Right? This has been a proven case study now as to how we can mark a service, how we can look at what are the different services, whether it is internal service or a third-party services. How can we configure this service request and service response and host a virtual server into the environment so that we can enable the end-to-end testing. And the virtualization is no longer for the digital application. The virtualization is now happening for legacy applications, for ERP applications, even for the database, and also for the mainframe components. Right? Automatically captures the realistic behavior, build a virtual service image, and it collects the service request and service response along with the data, and you can optimize the model for you to do that. So one important aspect right now in the 2017 is how can we host this into an AWS, right, and into a cloud, need not be AWS, into any cloud, so that we can host this entire service virtualization tool into the cloud or services into the cloud and be ready for the fully operated DevOps model. So that's the major transformation thing that has happened, and the organization has gained a huge success with implementing the service virtualization in the cloud environment, and it reduces the capex of hosting. It also helps with infrastructure and policy as a code model. Continuous integration versus continuous delivery versus continuous deployment. Often then it is confused, right? Where do I stand? Where does QE stand? Is my organization fully ready with DevOps or not? Right? So, if I have done with CI, am I ready with DevOps or not? If I have done with the CD, which is delivery or deployment, am I ready with the DevOps or not? So that's always the challenge that happens. So we call this as version 1.1 in terms of moving from the DevOps version. Continuous integration, yes, it plays a major role. Continuous delivery and continuous deployment. How can I approve the deployment? How can I do an automatic deployment? When you have this CI and deployment process, and if it is automated, yes, your organization is inching towards the fully DevOps model. Right? And in the DevOps model, the source control changes are automated. The build, which is run, build, and unit automated. And when it gets into deployment to test environment and run the integration, load, and all those tests, and go all the way towards production deployment. When an organization gets onto all these integrated components and do an automation state, then your organization is towards the fully matured model of DevOps. How can QE play a role? The QE organization, the quality engineering organization, with the name of SDET, which is Software Development Engineer Test, can take up the role of the build and unit test automation, can take up the role of deploying it into the test environment and run the integration test and be part of those production deployment validation as well, production readiness testing or operation readiness testing. Right? What tools and technologies should QE team, quality engineering team, get trained? Of course, Selenium is dominating in the market, right? So this is primarily the alternate tool of choice. Of course, I do have a list of tools that the commercial off-the-shelf vendors provide, but some of those digital organizations, what are those unicorns are deploying in their QE organizations? Okay? Though Selenium continues to dominate, the following tools are being adopted faster in unicorns in digital organizations, which is the WebDriver IO, Protractor, Selenium is Protractor, or Concourse for the continuous integration server. Right? Ripple is one of those languages is used to build WebDriver components, so that our organization, QE organizations should get themselves used to these WebDriver components to see how can this can add a value into that. Concourse is now being viewed as an alternate to Jenkins, and then see how it can be a continuous integration. Maven is one of those tools for build, and Gradle is taking another step. And the PDD tools like Jasmine, Mocha are now taking the next step better than the Cucumber tools, right? So behavior-driven development tools. Right? Grunt is one of those technology which helps with automate anything with a little bit of minimum effort. Right? WebDriver IO it's basically a Selenium runner. It becomes a very powerful for an integration. And WebDriver, which is from a visual regression, is taking another precedence. And in industries, all those technology organizations, the online organization or retailers are evaluating or already having a framework in place in these organizations. While the financial services or the manufacturing or the utility industry may not change immediately, but they are also evaluating some of these tools in their organization because DevOps has taken a higher precedence. Right? With DevOps, the need for microservices testing and with Spring technologies will take a higher precedence. In next year, everything is all about microservices, and Spring Server it's taken a higher precedence. So QE organization needs to know how can I test the microservices? How can I use tools that can trigger my input and output validation for a microservices? How can I integrate into my server so that I can test my microservices ahead of the game? Right? By 2019, Spring Server will dominate the server market space, and that's and GitHub. If you are involved in DevOps or if you are involved in QE organization, I'm sure you wouldn't be forgetting the word called GitHub. Become a global platform, and open source is going to continue dominate the future. Right? Of course, the commercial tool vendors are also now trying to of the integration, deployment, and faster releases. Whereas these are some of those tools and technologies that QE team get adopted and be ready for adopting the DevOps world. The next comes operation stabilization and alignment with DevOps. Some organizations say that, okay, release, configuration management, environment management, continuous monitoring is not part of the test organization. It's not part of quality assurance organization. You get that? Whereas when it comes to quality engineering, we need to be involved in the release automation to see how it is being released, how a particular automation is being deployed, and look at deployment of smoke tests, see that whether it is fully ready for the integration test or not. Right? Configuration management, rapid configuration management is happening. So we, as QE organization, we need to know how it is all happening with Test, Puppet, and Ansible, and various other tools and technologies into that. Right? Environment management, if you are into QE, how can we maintain the virtualized and non-virtualized services? How can I get into an end-to-end test environment management services? Right? What is Docker is all about? What is containerization? How can I be ready to adopt those technologies for me to execute an end-to-end testing using these build and environment management? Right? As QE organization, we need to know what are the nuances of environment, what is virtualization, how a cloud is being used for hosting these environments, and what type of input and output criteria, how can we trigger all those automated executions, how can we integrate our automation tool or performance tool or security tool into those environments so that it is seamless. Continuous monitoring. AppDynamics made a big history in the recent one being acquired, and there are many tools that are also there in Dynatrace, NewsRelic, and Azure. So these are for understanding the infrastructure monitoring, the application monitoring, evaluate how a services is being done. It is for both production as well as for the pre-production environment also. The continuous monitoring plays a major role in the total continuous integration and continuous delivery. At a simplistic view, lab, DevOps-enabled test lab is the go forward. Organizations have a lab, not only for DevOps. Of course, DevOps is a CI/CD lab. As QE organizations, we need to have a DevOps-enabled test lab that integrates with your virtual service, physical service, and continuous integration service. So you could do a hosting of tools, hosting of your automation scripts, security scripts, security tools, and application monitoring tools. Comes the continuous automation and delivery pipeline. So if your organization involved in delivery pipeline, and they call it, if your organization have a DevOps, they call that as orchestrated continuous integration pipeline. They have requirements, they have document and verification, they have software configuration management repository, build management, they have packaging, deployment, and hosting and staging environment. Right? And all of these are packaged with container as a software configuration management. There are many tools that are in place, like I was mentioning about GitHub. The Rancher is one of those for environment. The operations tools like Puppet, and enterprise microservices stack is being hosted, and this powered by the on-demand test bed using containers. You can trigger a test bed through an automated environment. So the on-demand, you can host a new environment for your integration testing, performance testing, system testing, or UAT, or unit level of testing, or virtualization testing. It's for and finally, with the reporting and monitoring aspect, and organizations build an advanced analytics dashboard through a Tableau or visual reporting into that. The topmost corner is the continuous automation. As QE organization, where do we get involved? As and when the requirement comes, we need to get involved in the automated testing. Test automation scripts, whether it is regression or risk-based execution, enables them into a CI, continuous integration enabled execution, start doing the automated performance and dynamic application security testing. All of these reported into a collaborative dashboard and powered by, integrated into the continuous deployment with respect to coding, compiling, and build management, and evaluating the code quality, which is the fast and unit test, static application security testing or unit testing, the code analysis, and with an on-demand environment of deployment of apps and release management aspect of it. The QE, as QE engineers, the role of SDET, the software development engineer test, or the QE engineer, need to have skills in one or many categories when it comes to the DevOps implementation. What is collaborative dev test platform and how does it help? Right? So, organization, there are many open source tools are also available. There are commercial tools are also available for how can we do a collaborative dev test platform. And this is a huge value add, and this is a selling point for the QE team to go to the DevOps organization, say, and challenge them back and to say that, okay, you may be involving in CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. How QE can play a role. Right? So this is a live dashboard that is taking a major transformation in many organizations as to how a release progression happens. What kind of where the build is. Is it at unit level or integration level, deployment level, or monitoring level? Right? What is the build status of it? Right? Is the build is fully deployed or half ready, or what status of it? Whether it is integration ready or system test ready. The test status. The test status is all about your functional test, integration test, SaaS, dynamic application security testing, performance, API testing, service virtualization, and all of those. The next comes the predictive analytics. right? So in the predictive analytics, all of these dev test platforms gather all these data and then visually, provide the input to the DevOps organization and say that, okay, if you are implementing a full-scale, scaled agile framework, or if you're implementing microservices, or if you're implementing digital applications, what type of analytics is all about? How can you release it to production? How many rounds of testing that you need to do, and what is your total team size? What kind of metrics, intelligence that we can give into this? Predictive analytics plays a major role. It's not about metrics reporting. It's not about metrics analysis. It is about predictive analysis with the metrics intelligence inside. And application health monitoring. So application health monitoring is all about how can I monitor this and then show that in a production lifecycle or in a pre-prod lifecycle, what is your health score index, right? And next comes the release readiness. So if I'm deploying a particular code, what status of release readiness into that? Can I release it into the production or not? Can I do a go no go decision? What type of quality metrics do I have? What is the stage gate? What stage gate it is right now? Can I release it to production? What type of defect leakage that I'm going to inject into production? Go or a no-go decision into that, right? All of these are integrated with your monitoring tools, with your dynamic application security tools, or test automation, or test management tool, or a performance testing tools into that. Packaged with your continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and packaged with your production monitoring aspect as well. So with that note, I'm going to pass here and open the session for all of you.
All right. Does anybody out there have some questions for Pradeep here during the Q&A session? I will start. First off, Pradeep, a question did come in. You shared a few different names of companies that were involved in DevOps, but can you list some other enterprise organizations that are actually doing DevOps now?
Yes, the enterprise organization, without naming those, when we evaluated a Fortune 1000 companies, where they are heading, almost all the organizations either as an enterprise they are going into DevOps, or as a pocket solution they are going into DevOps. They are evaluating how can I get my mobility applications go into digital space, integrate into IoT, and in these technologies, it is mandatory that they use DevOps in a full-scale model.
Okay. Next question: are there any tools that you suggest for the live dashboards, such as which integrate with all the different monitoring tools?
Absolutely, yes. So there are tools into that, and of course, it's not a selling for me to do. If you Google Signity.com, we do have a platform, and also there are some open source platform as well. If you look at Hyglia, that's one of the DevOps continuous collaborative platform that is available as part of the GitHub. And there are commercial tools. Vendors are also offering these tools in place. And apart from that, there are point solutions like the Jiras of the world, the Atlassians, and some of those off-the-shelf tools, commercial tools, and open source tools are also being offered. There are many tools that are in place. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to share the list of tools that are available for collaborative platform.
Okay. Also, can you share any thoughts on like tools specifically for like Oracle ERP?
Yeah. So in these ERP applications, open source don't play a major role, except for the web component of it. It's only the commercial tools that take the precedence for ERP applications. So what we have seen is industries like the CAs of the world, or Tricentennial, or the SmartGear. These are companies that has an accelerator for the Oracle and the ERP applications for their DevOps component.
Okay, and next question is, can you please share Dev Test Ops along with TDD and BDD approach case studies across different industries like insurance, banking, healthcare, and life. So do you have any of those kind of case studies that we might be able to share with some of the folks out there?
Absolutely, yes. Tom, I can send that as a case study, which you can share it with the attendees. No worries about that. Yes, insurance organizations both in the West Coast and as well as in the East Coast of the Americas are DevOps in their organization, especially for their the commercial lines, the property and commercial lines, with respect to the digital aspect, they are doing it. And the leading products like the Guidewise of the world are also evaluating DevOps in their continuous integration story.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do then, folks, is we'll gather up some information, then I'll send out an email to people about that. Do we have any other questions for Pradeep? We are getting kind of close to the end of our time frame here, but we still have some time left. So if anybody's got any more questions, certainly just go ahead and type those in, and I'll pass those along. As we have a question that says, we need information on unit testing for Informatica pattern ETL.
Yeah. So with respect to all those BI tools or the data-specific tools, yes, there are many tools that are available in the market. With respect to Informatica itself, they have their own data quality tools that helps with the unit level of testing. And we have also seen the commercial tool vendors have a BI platform customized for the integrated component. I'll be happy to embed that as part of the case study as to list of tools that are useful for the business intelligence tools for the Informatica ETL component.
Okay. All right. So next question, how does QA without technical skills get up to speed with DevOps automation and CI/CD tools?
That's a very good question, actually. That's going to be a very challenging one. And in recent analyst reports also, they said testing isn't dead. It comes in a different way, which is the DevOps or quality engineering or SDET of those. So if you are having just a plain manual testing with a domain background, it is important for you to have the awareness of the tools, the various languages that are being done. You don't need to be an expert level to go into DevOps, the core DevOps architect role. But you should prepare yourself for understanding, some of the languages or some of the tools that I've just mentioned, or either get into an open source tool. There are many training hubs that are available, and especially with the faster development and the technology, is tremendously transformed. It is easy for the QA team to understand what's going on with the Selenium. How can I understand the Selenium, as a basic first step? How can I get into some of those automated components, with respect to the CI/CD platform? How do they build deployment? How do they integrate into that? So there should be a 101 training, level 1 training. Any QA engineers which has only the manual testing background need to know for them to be ready for the DevOps work. Okay, that's going to be the key. Organization need to transform. It has to be multifold. If leaders are in this call, you need to prepare your team, for going through all this. I think QA is doing a fantastic job. I just read many webinars in the last 6 months, and they have been doing a lot of training sessions on preparing yourself for the next level. There are many conferences that are happening focused on DevOps. The recent conferences that I've been participating into, they do a lot of training on be ready for the QA world. So there is an investment, of course, to get their time, their effort spent in transforming themselves into a DevOps ready.
Okay. One question we had says there was some slides that you referenced risk-based testing. How much testing is needed in DevOps, and how do we decide?
Yeah. Very good question again. So there is the testing in DevOps is critical. Risk-based testing plays a major role because when you do a faster deployment and you need to go hit the market much faster, there has to be a risk-based testing that you need to do. There is no quantifiable number that says, do only 80%, do only 90%, so you are fully covered into that. So you have to measure a risk for your environment, for your release readiness. Get a sign-off from your IT organization as to say that, okay, if I'm doing 90% of your total requirement through a risk-based testing, I need probably release 1% of defects which are less critical into that. Is that a viable option or not? So we need to have a SLAs, we need to have a benchmark so that we can appropriately measure the amount of coverage that is required for us to do the total testing into that. But when it comes to automation of it in the DevOps world, you need to move from the traditional 50%, 60% regression to a higher number of percentage automation with respect to API automation, service virtualization automation, functional automation, integration testing automation, performance. A lot of automation comes into the play. That coverage needs to be increased a lot so that your speed to execute is faster, so you will be able to achieve a maximum coverage into that.
Okay. Let's see here. As it says, well, let me make a note here. So what we'll do, a number of these questions are very, very specific to a person's particular case. So what we'll do is I'll pass these off to one of our team members here. They'll work with Pradeep to get some answers, and then we'll sort of email directly back to those people asking those questions for those people who have, in fact, asked some very specific questions. So we'll do that. Next question says, is it possible to practice TDD for ETL applications which uses the Informatica as a development tool?
Absolutely, yes. There has to be a change. I understand there are applications which are digital, mobile, IoT enabled. Yes, DevOps and TDD goes direct. Right? When it comes to these type of Informatica based, ETL based, BI based applications, it is possible to build APB. It is possible to create scripts ahead and then integrating into the execution component and enable that as well. So we have done that with a healthcare organization of doing a TDD approach with the Informatica. As part of the case study, I'll be happy to share in detail as to what are some of those techniques to do it, what are the configuration changes that need to be done, what tools that we have used for those approaches. We'll be happy to share that.
All right, well, very good. Well, again, certainly, folks, you've got some more questions. Go ahead and type those in. We'll have another minute or so here. But we are at the end of the time, and so I would like to thank Pradeep for this outstanding presentation. I know if you're like me, it was a little like drinking water from a fire hose, but nonetheless, it was an excellent presentation. To that end, we have recorded this presentation, and we will be posting a PDF copy of the slides. So you can kind of go back and look at the level. There was a tremendous level of detail, so you'll be able to go back and look at those and make some ideas about how they fit into your particular workspace. So anyway, the webinar, as I mentioned, has been recorded. You can go out to QAIUSA.com. Usually takes us about a day or so before we get things actually posted out there. So if you'll just sort of watch for that tomorrow or maybe the next day. I would like to invite you to join us July 6th and the 27th as our Summer of Agility Innovation Series continues with Bob Galen and Sean Bradshaw, who will be presenting the two-part webinar, Patterns for Mature Leaders. And likewise, set your calendar for July 12th when Rippy Singh will be presenting Building a Culture of Innovation. So watch for an email from us with a specific time and registration link for that. Certainly, it's been my pleasure to host today's webinar, and on behalf of QAI and Mr. Govindasamy, I want to thank you for joining us for the webinar. And everyone, have a great day.
Thank you.